Tonight's presentation is going to be on foreclosures and auction properties, and we're going to look at, I think I had 7 or 8 properties that are current, meaning that they're active and that you could still put in a bid or go to the auction if you wanted to. So before we get into the heart of the properties, I do have to share this disclaimer with you. So the information presented is from sources to be reliable. However, no responsibility is assumed for the accuracy of this information. The opinions and advice contained in this presentation should be verified with a third party, and the originator of this presentation, who is me, disclaims all responsibilities and liability for the accuracy and content of the presentation and for any damages or loss arising from any inaccuracies and errors, and shall not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, or special damages in connection with this presentation. Okay, and this is really important because a lot of the properties that we're going to talk about, there is a significant higher level of risk with them than if you were just to go and buy a property from MLS or through a real estate agent. Okay.
All right.
And the advice is for general information only, and before making any financial decisions, you should seek independent advice from your financial advisor, lawyer, or accountant. And I'm realizing now that I should actually include in here your real estate coach, because that's a service that you guys can get. Okay, so before we go and look at the different properties that are up for auction and foreclosure in Southern Ontario, why should you listen to me? Okay, so this is a one-pager about who I am. So I do have my professional engineering license and my project management professional designation. So I am still a practicing engineer and a project manager. Currently, right now, I have 6 properties, and those 6 properties translates into 10 doors. So I actually manage 10 different apartments or doors, if you want to call it that way. I specialize in buy and hold and lease options. And lease options is just another way of saying rent to owns. So I've been a property manager for about 20 years. I do real estate coaching, and I'm also a mortgage agent. On my free time, I volunteer with the Professional Engineers of Ontario and the Project Management Institute. And I also sit on the steering committee for the Cycle for Sight. We do an annual bike ride, and we do fundraising for that. And when I'm not doing all those things, I love spending time on the beach, hiking, and traveling. So some information for me. Okay, so here is the agenda for tonight. So these are the, I'm just gonna go back. So here are the 8 properties right now that are in foreclosure and up for auction. So as you can see, there's actually a good variety. There's 4 that are up for auction, and 4 closer to the bottom are up for foreclosures. And the way you know if it's a foreclosure property or a tax arrears, so I use those 2 terms interchangeably, a foreclosure or a tax arrear properties. So the 4 that are listed at the bottom are tax arrears, and the 4 up at the top are up for auction. Okay, and so a tax arrear property, as you can see, there's one in Ajax going for $35,000. There's 2 in Bradford, one going for $39,000 and one for $34,000, right? And then we have a couple of auction ones, some in London, Ontario, and then some in Barrie. Okay, so just
sorry, are those values representing the tax arrear value or the value in, like,
no, the
gross
what
value?
is owing? What is owing? So the tax arrears properties that are up for a bidding, that is what is owing on the property. So that is the minimum starting tender price.
Okay.
Right. So the value of those properties, well, I'll bring them up as well because I did pull those reports for those properties, and we can actually do a comparison based on, okay, well, $35,000 for the property in Ajax, how much is that property really worth, right? So we'll take a look at that as well, along with where the property is actually located. So I specifically
Okay.
focus on Southern Ontario because the majority of the people who are interested in these properties are from Southern Ontario. Okay, so
Okay. Do you specifically look at a different market, or is this just broad range? I guess we'll see by each property, but like I say, do you just sort of hone in on a certain market, or do you look at everything and anything that's out there?
when you say market, what do you mean?
Oh, I mean like a piece of property, like a commercial piece of property, or a
Okay.
you know just a vacant property versus, are you focusing just on residential? Are you focusing on multi-residential? Or you just, you're keeping a wide range of options when you're doing it?
Yeah, so I actually look at a broad range. So I will look at single
Okay.
family and multi-units. You won't see a lot of multi-units coming up this way because normally multi-units, there's a rental component and the owners are making some sort of cash flow, if not at least making their tax payments, right?
Okay.
So what you'll find on foreclosures and auctions, they are normally single family or vacant land. So I personally will look for a property in Thunder Bay because I've got family up there. I will also look in the cottage country area, something that's along the water by Bancroft, Belleville area around Peterborough, because I currently have a cottage rental out there, and so I'm trying to make sure that I grow in the areas that I have other properties.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
now saying that as well, though, I will look pretty much anywhere in Ontario. So I actually look at the entire listing of foreclosure and auctions that come up. And I will actually do a search on all the different listings, specifically on the area first. And if the area is not too far, then I will look at the actual properties themselves. But some areas are just too remote, and it's not worth my time to even looking at the properties, even if there's potential deals there, right? Because the cost of managing it would not make sense, right? So there are properties way north of Thunder Bay that are super cheap, right? And most
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so just in the essence of time, because I only booked 45 minutes for this, and I am going to stay on the phone with you as long as you want to answer any questions that you have. But in essence of time, I was thinking we would only look at 4 of the properties first, and then if we had time, then we would go into 1 or 2 more additional properties. Okay, so looking at this list of properties, is there a couple that jump out at you that you want to look at?
The vacant land is interesting.
Okay.
I'd like to see one of the ones that have the, one in the category 6 to 8,
Okay.
one in the category 5, and then I'm thinking one of the ones in London.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at the 128 Somerset in London.
Okay.
Okay, 128 Somerset. Okay, so I'm just going to write this down so that I don't lose it. And then let's look at the 19 Ducatel, I would say, in Ajax.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do the Ajax one first, because that one really piqued my interest as well. Okay, so I'm just going to get out of the presentation and bring up the specific information here. So the one in Ajax. Okay, so this is the property. Oh, sorry. This is the property available here in Ajax. So I'm just going to bring this up and you can see what the property looks like here. Okay, so here's the front of the house, and it's from a Google Map shot. Here's the layout of the land, okay? And I'm going to be going back and forth between these documents so you can see. So this came from the Ontario Gazette, And I'm just going to find that specific information here. So you can see, okay, there we go. So this particular property in Ajax, it's going up for bid, and you have to submit the bid by 3 p.m. in the town of Ajax by October the 5th. So this is in 2 to 3 weeks. So there's time to do your due diligence on this. So what they're, so you've got the roll number, you've got the land description, and the starting bid is at $35,000. Okay, so I ran a report on this property, and the report says that this property is roughly around $730,000. Now, this is only an estimate from the tool that I use, and this is a tool that I have because I'm a mortgage agent. I normally would not be able to get this information unless you knew somebody from who's a real estate agent or somebody who worked at a law firm that has access to these files. Okay. So what I found really interesting with this property is that this property was sold back in 2002 to this individual. It's worth about $730,000, and there's no mortgage on it.
But you purchased it for how much? How much did it sell for at that time?
$282,000.
God, okay.
Okay, but now keep in mind, this is back in 2002. Okay, so 15 years ago. Okay, and so this report tells me that there's no mortgage. Oops, sorry, no mortgage on the property. So now this is something to be taken with a grain of salt. It's not always accurate. And so one of the things that I always do with these properties that I'm interested in, I actually go and do a proper title search on it. Okay, and this report
through a lawyer.
You can go through a lawyer, or you can actually go through a title search company. So there's companies out there that will do the service for about $75 to $100 per property search. And then depending on how much detail is in that title search, there could be an additional fee. Okay. Now keep in mind, up until the day of auction or even the day of tendering, that title, what's on title, could change. So not everything within the title reporting system works automatically. So let's say there is a mortgage on this property from somebody. It might not necessarily even show up until the day of tendering or the day of auction. And so you have to keep that in mind, that that's one of the risks about going with a foreclosure and auction property, is that you could be buying a property where a mortgage isn't showing up on title yet. Okay. So with this graph here, what it's showing is that the property value has been increasing over the years. And this amount here is sort of the average sales price in the neighborhood, right? Normally, the graphs I've seen in the last few years have been in an upward trend. I would probably say in a handful, I've seen where it's actually gone down. So those ones would sort of be in the cottage country or in areas where there's not a lot of growth, right? But on average, you do see growth in the trend. The other thing on this report is just it shows a historical sale, and this, you take with this grain of salt because the information is outdated, right? And then they do a comparable as well, right? And so here, these sales are from 2017. So these ones are actually reasonable, and they're within that same area. So this report at the top was saying it's around 740, but you can see that the last several properties that have sold in the last couple of months have not gone for that amount. Like, it's actually gone significantly less, right? So that would come into play when you analyze the report as well. And then there's just a map showing you where the property is. Okay, so this property was really interesting because it's only for $35,000, and it's there's a couple of weeks left to go on it, right? That you could bid on it. So in terms of bidding on this, if you were interested, there's a package that you would get in order to submit your bid. Okay, and for every tax arrears property, you have to go through this process. So in this one here, you would just fill out this form. Sorry, and I'm just going through this because I want to see if there's more pictures that would give you a better view of the property. So this is the same one as what was in the previous report. And this one sort of gives you an idea here. Like it's on a street with a bunch of other small houses, and it looks like there's like a high school or some sort of a business there, right? Okay. And then there's another description there. And normally with a property like this, because I'm in Southern Ontario or in Toronto, and Ajax is only about like a 45-minute drive from me, I would actually just drive out there and look at the property, poke my head in and just see what else I can find out about this property. Right.
Can you physically walk through the building or no?
No. So that's one of the problems with foreclosures and auctions, is that you are buying it sight unseen, meaning that you cannot make an appointment to see it. You're technically not even allowed to knock on the door because you don't know who's going to be living there. And you technically will not get a vacant property after you win your bid, meaning that you would have to hire a sheriff to kick whoever is living there out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to be doing a full-blown foreclosure and auction training session on the 26th, and that's for about an hour and a half. To the last time I did it, it was about 3 hours because there was just so many questions. But we go through all of those considerations and the risk with doing this strategy. So a lot of people love the idea of buying a property that's worth $700,000 for, let's say, $50,000 or even $100,000, right? But there's a lot of due diligence that has to be done even before you submit your bid. And then there's a lot of potential risk and time waster that could potentially take place before you would even win and take possession of the property. So I go into like really in-depth, step-by-step on all of those things when I go through that training course. Okay. So this is that property in Ajax, and this one is definitely one that is worth looking at because it's in Southern Ontario and it's super cheap. Now, because it's only going for 35, you can bet that the other bids coming in are going to be significantly higher than that, right? Okay, so the second property we are going to talk about is the 128 Somerset. So let me show you what that one looks like. Okay, and this one's in London. And one of the things that I do with all the properties that I seem interested in, I actually do a Google map search on them and try to get as much visual picture as I can. So I'm just going to expand this so you can see it, and then we'll go into more detail about this property. So this is what the property looks like. So it's actually a really nice property in London, Ontario. So the area is great. Okay, so this is where it is. So, I'm not too familiar with London. So for me, I always try to do, like, how far away is it from Toronto and other surrounding areas. So one of the things I also look at is, how, like, what else is around there, right? So this is where the property is. And you can tell it's in a residential, quiet area because of all these other houses around here. There's a public school, there's an area on both sides there. So it seems like a pretty nice property. So with that, I'm going to go here. Okay, and I'm going to just do a search on the property. And it was Somerset. Let's see if we can find it. what was it? Oh, SOM. Okay. SOM. Somewhere. Oh. Oh, I hope I did not touch the wrong file here. Let's see. Where to go through? Sorry, I'm just going to make sure I get the right address here. Let's just go with that. Okay, there we go. So this one is up for auction, and you know it's up for auction because when you read this information, it says the information that is given here, it falls underneath, so I'm just scrolling up to where it says sheriff's sales of land, sheriff's sale of land. That means that it's an auction, meaning that you don't submit a bid, but what you do is you actually go there in person. Okay, and the auction, yeah. So it's similar to what you would see on TV for the storage wars, you know, where people are bidding auctions, or you'll see it, you know, for estate sales, right? You actually have an auctioneer at the front, and they start the bidding, and you have a number and like a panel number. And if you're interested in bidding, you have to register, like pre-register yourself on the day of, and then they give you a number, and you sit there, and as the prices go up, you actually put up your placard to say that you're interested in bidding at that price. So it's a very interesting process.
That'd be fun.
Oh, absolutely. And it literally happens in like less than 5 minutes. I've never been to one where it's lasted longer than 10. And it's fun to sit in because you can see people get emotionally roused up from this, right? And so in the training session that I do, I actually talk about how to prepare for these auctions and what techniques you can use to make sure that you don't just leave the auction without at least meeting somebody else and networking and walking away from those auctions at least with a, you know, networking and making a contact, but also how to set yourself up to win at these auctions as well. Okay, so this one is an auction that's happening in London, Ontario. So what you would do, so here, it actually says that it's, sorry, I have to go up one page here because it says, so when you read it, you have to read it for the whole, like from the very beginning here. And it's interesting how they lay it out, but they actually do tell you if it's in auction because that person has defaulted on a loan with a bank or with a private lender or with some investor, right? And they'll actually, so that information will also help you in preparation for going to the auction. Okay, and so what they will do. Where is that? So this one is taking place, does it say right here? At the courthouse, 80 Dundas Street in London.
No, I mean, where is where's the information where it's telling you what the issues are?
Oh, okay. So right up here, I'll highlight it for you, and then I will make it bigger and you can read it. Okay. So it's saying who, okay, hold on. So let me see here. So the real and personal property of Douglas Kane, also known as, so all the different possible names of this person. And it says, in their action against Marshall Murray Incorporated, and that lists a bunch of people here. So as assigned by the lawyers, right? So these guys are the defendants here. So what this says to me, right, is that this company here has put in a suit against this individual, Douglas Kane and Cheryl, because there's two people listed on the title here. And they're just taking action against them to get funds back, right? And so what they've done is they've seized the rights and title, interest, and equity of that property.
So they must have lent them money or something.
Yes, there must have been some sort of
security. Okay.
Correct. So for some reason they haven't been able to. Yes. So this property is going up for auction, and it is going to take place on October 19th. Right. So there's quite a bit of time left on this one to do your due diligence work on this one. So, and it also says here that the sheriff here is going to be offering it for sale by public auction. Okay, so with this one, you would have to have 10% of the price bid on you at the time that you go for auction, and there's a couple of other terms here. Okay, so with this property, when I ran the report here,
do you know what the starting bid is before you go, or you just wait and see? No,
so normally the starting bid is what the auctioneer wants to start it at. So a good auctioneer will start it at a low price and then work its way up. I've seen some auctioneers where they come in super high and they've already wiped out half the people who are interested in bidding, right? Okay. And all of the time, I've seen the prices get to where the auctioneer wants it anyways. So it doesn't matter if they start low or high, because the property is worth a certain amount, and there's always going to be somebody there who doesn't really know what they're doing, and they overbid, is what I've seen.
I see. Okay.
Right. So
yeah, they get people excited, and yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So one of the things that I'll cover in that training course next week is the strategy to go in so that you don't become one of those people who lose their shirt on an auction, right? So with this property, this is the value report on it. So right now, this property has no mortgage on it, which is why I'm saying when you do your title search and your other due diligence stuff, you want to make sure that you verify that there is no mortgage on it. Okay, so this property is around 500,000, and on the high end in that area, you're looking at about 720. So it's still a good, you know, just looking at this initial information, it looks like a good deal. Right? And the same thing as to the last report. The trend is going up in the area. The individual on here purchased this property. It was a transfer, so it's been in the family since 1981, basically, like if you look at the names. Okay. And so it looks like here that the husband died, and then the wife just took it over at that point, and it's just been in her name. Right. So,
it's amazing, though, that these properties have no mortgage and they're in this circumstance. Like, you figure.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. So that would raise a flag with me, right? In terms of okay, why is there a sheriff involved, right? So it means that there was a loan or some sort of debt that was tied to the property, and so it could just mean that this information here is out of date. Right? Now, some lenders don't report into this system, meaning that they don't report into Equifax, right? And so there could be a loan against the property that's not showing up here, but when you do the title search, it will show up there. Okay. So, so what else is in? Oh, so in the last couple of months in this area, and actually some from August even, so very recent. You're looking at about $500,000 for a similar property, right? So it's not bad. So if you can get, were you going to say something, Frank?
No, sorry.
Okay, perfect. So I was just going to say that if you can snag this property even for, let's say, 100 or 200,000, you still would have done really well on this deal, assuming that there's nothing else wrong with the property. Right. So, okay, so that was, I think, all the.
So in your opinion, sorry, And this is totally your opinion. What would that starting bid be, do you figure? I know it's up to the auctioneer, but
so if they were okay, so the goal of the auction is for the auctioneer to get as much money for that property as possible, and then that fund that they get would pay off all the debts, plus whatever is left over then would go to the person who currently owns that property. So if the auctioneer does their job right, they want the highest bid possible. So the auctioneer could start at 100,000, let's say, right? And then just sort of back off and let people start bidding, right? So with a property like this, I would be surprised if they, assuming that there's nothing on the title, so if it's a clean slate, I would be very surprised if they started less than 200,000. Right?
Okay.
Even if you got it at 250, you're still getting it at 50% of the value. All right. So, you know, one of the things that I always suggest with these auctions is that you do your due diligence, you figure out how much room there is for you to make a profit on this property, and you go in there with your max price, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay. So if your max, like if you find out that there's $200,000 of liens on this property, then really, you know, you've got $300,000 room there. Okay. Then you've got your lawyer's fees and you've got whatever fees that you have. Then you want to also count in what is, if worst case scenario, you need to completely renovate the place. How much is that going to cost you? Okay, then you back calculate, okay, so then that's, let's say, another $100,000 or 150, right? So now you're down to 150, right? So then your max bid would be 150. So
and then hope you don't scratch your nose.
What, sorry?
And hope you don't scratch your nose after you put in your maximum bid.
Right, so now the thing with the auction is that you can start at a bid, let's say you start at 100 and you can still work your way up to your 150, right? But that's one of the things that I always suggest is that you know what your max bid is going in and you stick to it, because you've already done the analysis work before going into it. So you don't want to get caught up in the motions, and because seriously, if you, okay, so let's say you decide that your max bid is 150 and then for some crazy reason you get too excited and you go in at 200,000. That's $50,000 that you've overpaid for a property that you haven't seen inside. You don't know what the conditions are. You don't know if you have to evict the people and hire the sheriff to kick them out, right? And you know, so potentially you've got an extra 50,000 invested in this property, you know, that you weren't intending to invest, and you could potentially lose that entire 50,000. Okay. Okay, great questions. Okay, so now the other property that you said you wanted to look at was the vacant land in Kawarthas. Okay, and I love looking at cottage country because I'm always looking for cottage country properties. Okay, so let me show you what is available in the Kawarthas. Okay. I'm just going to type in sales. Okay. So I've gotten so used to doing these searches that I actually just know where to look for the tax and foreclosures. So here's the listing for all the tax arrears in Southern Ontario. I'm just going to minimize this. Okay. And here is a bunch in Kawarthas. So I'm going to leave it this size here. But what you can see is that it says sale of land by public tender. So public tender means that you would put in one max bid, okay, if you wanted to bid on that particular property. So there's one here, vacant land for 4,000. There's another one for 12, another one for 9, and it keeps going. So you've got, I don't know, about 10 of them to choose from here. So all of these are up for tender. Okay, so these are all vacant land just from the description that you see here, okay? If you see a physical address, then it just means that somebody has, or that the city has already divided that piece of land and it's given it a town, a physical address. So most likely then it would be easier for you to get a building permit or to get sewage or some sort of municipal treatment services to that property, okay? Now, a lot of these are just vacant land, and I can just tell from reading from the description that they're vacant, but also just from the price point, right? Like this one here, it's just a block number, it's got a roll number, and that's it, and it's going for $5,000.
So is the only way, obviously you can't Google map this, the only way is to go to the municipality to get a survey to figure out where this property is?
So you don't have to physically go to the municipality. You can actually just call them, and if they have it set up, they'll email it to you, or on their website, they'll have a link to where they have these public tenders, and you can just download or pay $10 or something for it. Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things that I have paid for is a service, and this is something that I was going to go into greater detail next week at the training course. This is a site that I go to, and I actually pay a membership for this. And then for all of my coaching clients, I will go on here and do searches for people if they want. And so if I go on here, I can actually see all of the tax and foreclosure properties that are up for happening right now. And I would just go on here and find ones for the Kawarthas right there. Oh, okay. There we go. Now I'm in. Okay, so this one here says that there's 13 properties, and I could do title searches with this particular website for $80 a property. They have 37 pictures available for the 13 properties, and it's houses and vacant land. So there's two types of properties available. So what I would do is I would actually just come on here and look at the information that they have here. So for example, this one here is a vacant piece of land, and you can see there's a road here. So there's access to this property, and it tells you it's for $4,000, right? So if you wanted more information, you would just click on this tab, and it would give you maybe another 2 or 3 photos if it had it, and it would give you some other information. There's this property here. So that one is actually a house, so it's not vacant land. So you can see that there. And that one's for 12, so that's not too bad, right? $12,000 for a house in the Kawarthas. Yeah. Right, and you just keep going, and you know, like normally when I'm looking in cottage country, I just skim through the pictures because I want to see, is there something by the water, right? And if, you know, like for me, I would look for a piece of property with water, and if they had it, then I would be interested in bidding for it, right? So this one here, it's sort of an odd one here. It's like you can tell that there's a driveway there. Sorry, did somebody have a question?
Daddy's calling you.
Hi. Hi, Yusuf. All right, so let's keep going here. So like in this particular one, this one would not interest me at all, right? Because it looks like you're basically buying a driveway.
Yeah.
Right.
Find a cul-de-sac.
Yes. Up in the Kawarthas for $5,000, right? So, you know, so this one here actually looks pretty interesting. It looks like there's a body of water there across from a main road, right? So that one might be interesting to look at. Now this one's interesting because look at how much land there is for $10,000, right? So this one here, it tells you that the minimum tender amount is $9,000. So you have to at least put in $9,010.90. Right? But potentially you could have this piece of property with 2 road access, you know, from the north and the west side there. And it looks like there's some other properties over here on this side. All right, and it looks like somebody has cleared it so that you could potentially build on there. This is another piece of vacant land. And then another one. Yeah. Oh, this one looks like it has a pool. 37 there, so that's not bad. Okay. Okay, so those are all the ones that are available in the Kawarthas, right? So this is one of the things that I would look at if I pulled up something from this listing and something jumped out at me, and because sometimes they do say, you know, bordering on so-and-so lake, right? And if it says that, then that would catch my eyes, and I would want to look to make sure that it is actually a waterfront property with road access. And so then I would go to that website and do my search there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So let me just do a time check. So it is 6:46. So, and that was just looking at 3 properties. Now I'm more than happy to go through another property if there is interest to look at another property.
I wouldn't mind seeing the Bradford one.
The Bradford, okay. Did you have one in particular, or just?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's 2 there, eh?
Yeah. See, that's
you know
why I do that.
Sorry, if we could look at the one in Waterloo.
The one in Waterloo, sure. Okay, so
Yeah.
619. Okay, so let's go to that one. Okay. So 619. Okay, so this one is a slightly older listing, but it is still valid actually. So let's just do sales. Let's go. Okay, so here it is here. Okay, and this one is up for auction. So I'm just going to see if I can find the one for, here we go. So this is the 619 Ginger Avenue, and it's got a number in front. So right off the bat, I would think that it's like a condo or a townhouse or something, okay? And right underneath it, it does say condo in there. So it is a condo that's up for auction, okay? And this one here, it's happening on the 20th, so tomorrow. So if you were interested in bidding on this, you'd have to go tomorrow. Okay.
Well, being a Sault Ste. Marie, I doubt it.
So one of the things that I've done before with auction properties is that I actually work with another person who I will make arrangements with. So if I can't physically go to an auction, I will make arrangements for them to go to the auction. I will pay them to do it. So I'm basically paying them an hourly wage plus their mileage. And I pay for a meal for them as well. And then I basically will send them the check to cover that 10%. And they will do the bidding for me, and I will give them a max number. Because there has been
that's done on a formal contract?
Yes. So it's somebody that I hire and trust to do this for me. Absolutely. Like, you know, because I'm sending them a significant amount of money, right? So I did that once for a property up in Blue Mountain. So there are ways around this issue of not being able to go in person.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So so this one is the same as, like, you'll realize that once you start reading these, that the conditions and the terms are the same regardless of the town that it's in, right? So they're always going to ask for the 10% down, and they're always going to make, you know, say that you need to have all these terms in place. So that's always the same thing. Okay. So now this is what the property looks like. So I always do a search on the property just to make sure that that it exists. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a listing that I found. So it's a row house, basically. So you're buying a section of it, and you can rent it out for roughly about $2,000. So that's not a bad investment. Like, if you can get this and make it cash flow, then you know that your rent amount could be about $2,000, right? So then you could put that into your calculations right off the bat and know if you're going to cash flow. Okay, so it's not a bad looking property. And then as well with this property, I also did pull a price report. Normally with condos and row houses, they're harder to find just because when they go to register the property, they don't always register it by the physical address. They have, you know, some initial identification number for it, and that sometimes get lost in the documentation process. So, but this one was fairly easy to find. So this family purchased the property in 2007 and bought it for $280. Okay, and here it's showing that the property is worth about, you know, $450 with a max of $450. It's estimated at $424 with a max of $450. So there's not much room to move on that, right? And this is what's interesting is that there's a mortgage on it with the Bank of Montreal for $270. Okay, but this mortgage is dated back for 2007, so it's been about 10 years. So you would think that this mortgage amount is significantly less because they would be paying their P&I every month to bring their mortgage down, right? So the way I analyze this right off the bat is that, okay, this property is worth, let's say $425. If there's still a full mortgage on this at $275, and let's say that's the best case scenario, meaning that they haven't gotten a second mortgage or they haven't gone another type of lien on the property, then you're looking at about $150,000, right? Potential profit that you can make on this property, right? So with this going up for auction, if this family, let's say, owed $275, then the auctioneer would probably start at about $150 and then get people, sorry, not at $150 because there's only about $150 room to go. They would probably start on the lower end at about $50,000 and then work their way up. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying that is that because it's up for auction, you are assuming this mortgage. Okay, and you will assume any other liens that are on the property. So if I bring this up here, this is the condition that's always listed for every single auction property. Okay, so it says that you will assume all mortgages, charges, liens, outstanding taxes, and other encumbrances. So this is part of that due diligence, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is the last one that you wanted to see. Okay. All right, so just to let you know, I am holding a webinar next week, and where I will go into detail, the step-by-step on how to find foreclosures and auctions, and then how to put in the bid and what to do at the auction. Now, for everybody that's on this call, and for the individuals that registered and then was not able to come for whatever reason, I'm going to waive your fee, okay? Because normally I do charge for that training course. So I am hoping that you can participate in the webinar next week. I've booked it. Yeah, okay. So I've booked it for an hour and a half, and normally we go over that. So if possible, book an extra 30 minutes to an hour to stay on the phone, because I will stay as long as there are questions to ensure that you leave that course ready to buy a foreclosure or auction property if you want to. Okay, so that's sort of that is my goal, is to teach you everything that I know about foreclosures and auctions and give you everything that you need so that you can make that bid successful, or that tender, the auction price successful.
Okay. So is the idea then to educate us to navigate and consistently look here, or do we use like an agent person like yourself, and we say, you know, if anything pops up in a certain area, let us know?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay, so I will show you how to find these properties for free. Okay, so really like all the stuff that we did tonight, except for this website, okay, everything else that I showed you is free. It's available out there. Okay, so the only thing, and even this information, some of it is for free, right? The reason why I pay for this service is because I'm on here all the time, and there's certain things that as a free subscriber you don't get, right? And so for me, it's beneficial for me to pay, I don't know, $200 I think it's for the year, to access the entire services that are available here. So what I will show you next week is how to do it all for free. And then if you wanted to pay for extra stuff, then you can do that, right? And then as part of my coaching services, I do that if that's something that you want to pay somebody for, right? So, but normally I would say don't, attend the seminar, learn how to do it. And if you want to do it, try and do it yourself. If you think it's beneficial for you to pay somebody like me to do it for you, right, then that's a conversation that we can have afterwards. But you need to decide if you want to do foreclosures and auctions, because once we go through some of the risks, you might not even want to do this strategy, because the strategy is not for everybody. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. High risk. Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely on the higher end risk, right? But now you're balancing that part out with being able to buy something, at 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right. So now also too, I am limiting the spots because I want to make sure that there's a lot of interaction with everybody. So I am limiting it to 9 spots for people who pay, and then for anybody who signed up for tonight, they'll just get an extra spot for free. So that's fine. Okay. Okay. So to get your spot, I just need you to text or email me saying that you want to attend for the September 26th spot, and I will make sure that you get that Zoom information. Okay. And then, and then we'll go through this as well. So that's fine when we go through it. Okay, and so then that's my coaching package. Okay, so my contact information. You should have my contact information, but just in case you don't, here's my contact information for the mortgage and then for my coaching thing. Okay. And then just a reminder about the disclaimer, okay? Just because of the high level of risk with foreclosures and auctions, I just want to make sure, that you get the information that you need, but then do verify everything on your own or with somebody that, like a real estate agent or a lawyer or another investor as well. Okay, and that is it. So I will stay on the phone with you guys to answer any questions if you have any. Okay, so.
Okay, I think the next set of questions is going to be on your next session. So really,
yes, I will literally. Yeah, so in the next session, you will literally get step-by-step instructions on how to find foreclosures and auctions and how to bid on them. And also the tips on how to prepare for the auction, what to do while you're at the auction, and then what to do when you win, okay? Because there's a whole process that goes with that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So if possible, please invite a friend or two to come to the next session. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay. Yusuf, do you have any questions or comments?
Sorry, I just came in a bit late.
Okay.
I would like to know, how do we reach to that gazette thing, gazette thing where the property is listed for the auction?
Oh, the Ontario Gazette.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will cover that next week, but I will show you right now as well. When you go onto the Google search engine, okay, just type in Ontario Gazette.
Okay.
Right? So I've been searching this forever, so it always just pops up on mine. But you'll get a site that looks like this,
Okay.
and you will get a listing of all the gazettes. Okay. So this document
Okay.
will look like this. And it has everything imaginable for Ontario, including name changes, divorces, bankruptcies, new businesses, everything imaginable. So if you are looking for some deep, heavy, boring reading, this is a good document to get.
Do we need to be a member for this?
No, it's free.
Okay.
It's free. It's available to everybody, and there is a new listing every 2 weeks. Okay, so if one of the suggestions that I always make is when you come to this site, pull the latest one, because anything that's going to be up for auction or foreclosure has an expiration date on it. So let's say you go away for 2 months, don't even bother looking at the ones that are old, because you would have missed the information or the time frame, right? So you just want to narrow down your time, because there are a lot of potential properties to look at.
Okay.
Okay.
So all the property which is there for auction, it should be listed in the Gazette?
Yes, correct.
All the property has to be.
Yes, so yes, absolutely. So legally, every single property up for auction and tax arrears has to be listed in the Gazette. So that's why I'm saying you don't need to pay for this service on this website, because it's the same information.
Okay.
Okay.
So it is irrespective of whether it's been auctioned by the B lender or A lender, that's regardless of that, it has to be listed on this Gazette.
Sorry, say that again.
Regardless of auction by the B lender or A lender, it has to be listed on the Ontario Gazette.
Okay, so when something goes up for auction, they have to go through a legal process.
Okay.
So then it goes by the sheriff.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So you won't necessarily know if it's a B lender or A lender or a private lender.
Right.
Okay. You only come up with that information when you're reading the content of what's in the Gazette, right? But all the auctions are always done by a sheriff.
Right. But we need to acquire that skills, how to go for this auction property to specifically to find the specific property which is beneficial. For that, we need your coaching.
Yeah, so that is what I will cover next week.
Okay.
In the 1.5 to 3 hour course.
Okay.
Okay.
So would we have our number in that paid one or the free one? In the next coaching? In the next coaching?
Yeah.
Our number would be in the free slot or the paid slot?
You will be in the free slot.
Okay.
Okay. If you want to pay, I'm more than happy to take your money. Okay. But for you and Frank, and then I think there was 2 other people who were supposed to come online.
Yeah.
They will be part of the free. Okay. So if you like, you can refer a friend and have them pay. And I'm more than happy to take their money too.
We'll pay all your dues as soon as we strike the first deal.
That's right. If you want, you can give me $100 when you make your first million, okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Are there any more questions for tonight? Otherwise, we will call it quits. And and I'll let you guys get back to your families.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Yusuf. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.